Hi, so I did my project on schizophrenia, and this little graphic right here, it shows all the just like an overview of schizophrenia, and so the typical onset is adolescence to mid 30s, and the brain function will change. There are positive and negative symptoms and multiple risk factors. And there are a lot of different treatments out there right now. The technical definition, schizophrenia is a serious mental health disorder in which people interpret reality abnormally. So this is just the brain, a healthy brain, and then a high-risk brain. So that's high risk for schizophrenia, but they don't have it yet necessarily. And then a brain with schizophrenia. So you can see where it affects it and how it affects it. The prevalence. So schizophrenia, it can happen in males or females. Typically, it emerges in one's early 20s. I kept reading over and over again that it kept happening when people were 21. So early 20s definitely. It's pretty rare that it would happen when someone's a child, but it does happen. And I think it's also a little bit more rare that it would happen when someone is much older, but again, I'm sure it does happen. And then I read that it typically emerges earlier in males than females, but only by a little bit. So maybe the male would get it when they're 18 rather than 21. And then, so it does emerge at this time. However, they're earlier on, when they're 12 or even earlier, there could be signs that this might be coming. So changes to the personality of the person, or just other alerts, like they might start acting different than they've been acting all of a sudden, and that could be a really big sign of this, or it could be nothing. So that's a really big problem with this disorder. And then a change in both cognition and social relationships could happen right before a diagnosis of this disorder. So they're all just signs leading up to this. Symptoms: delusions, hallucinations, hearing voices, trouble with thinking and concentration, and lack of motivation. Those are all symptoms, and there are much more that I didn't even put on here. And then I wanted to put this picture on here because later I'm gonna talk about something with the word catatonic, and I just wanted to make sure everybody knew what it meant. Actually, I didn't even know all the different things that it could mean. I just thought it meant the rigidity or stupor that lasts for days or hours, but apparently it also means performing strange movements, staying in uncomfortable positions without shifting, erotic or extreme movement, and echolalia, which is the repetition of words or behaviors. So I'm going to talk about the catatonic behaviors in a little bit. How it is diagnosed. So actually, before it's diagnosed, this person will get sent to an actual physician, or maybe patient first or something like that. I'm not really sure. And that doctor will rule out all other possibilities, and possibility meaning substance abuse or another neurological illness, because sometimes those a different neurological illness or substance abuse, it can mimic symptoms of schizophrenia, and it's not schizophrenia. So that's why a psychiatrist will want you to go to your physician first. And then if the physician has ruled out everything, they'll send you back to the psychiatrist to get reevaluated. And then for the actual diagnosis, if you do get sent back to the psychiatrist will evaluate you using the DSM-5 criteria, and you have to have 2 or more core symptoms. And so that could be, one of them that's required is hallucinations, delusions, or disorganized speech for at least 1 month. One of those is required. And then gross disorganization and diminished emotional expression, that's another one. And it just reiterated in this that you cannot have had a substance abuse issue, because oftentimes that it kind of messes up like how you get diagnosed, because the symptoms are so similar. Effects on work. So there are physical and mental effects. The physical effects, the hallucinogenic symptoms of this disease can make work impractical. So this is especially true of those having visual and auditory hallucinations that are not being controlled. So everything I'm going to talk about is speaking as if you were not on a medication, or like if you did not have your symptoms under control and you were working. So if you were going to work and you had hallucinations, that could be a big issue. And it could be dangerous to yourself and those around you. And then mental effects. Just the hallucinogenic symptoms are very difficult, and there are also catatonic effects. And then some people who have schizophrenia, like a lot of other mental illnesses, struggle in social situations, which there are definitely jobs that you don't have to be in a social situation, but most jobs you at least have to interact with people part of the day, or every once in a while, if it's not every day. So it can be difficult. Effects on school. 47% of people who have schizophrenia drop out of college, which I read that the national college dropout rate is 25%. So that number might not have been accurate, but that's what I read. And so the schizophrenia dropout rate is much higher than that. And then the student, if they are able to return to school, they are definitely encouraged to once their symptoms are more stable and they feel comfortable doing that and their parents feel comfortable doing that. There should be a person on staff at the school that has a great amount of knowledge about schizophrenia and is available to the student most hours of the day in case something were to happen. Life outcomes. Many people actually improve their symptoms through help or on their own, however, but they do improve, and a lot of people end up living on their own and living relatively normal lives through the help of medication or family support or anything else. Some people live in group settings, but most people don't have to live in a institutional setting, which is very exciting news. So, but there is no official cure, and I was reading in most of the websites I visited, it's very complex and people don't really understand, besides it can be passed down from your parents. Besides that, people don't really understand why it happens. So, helping from a teacher's perspective, of course you'll want to get an IEP, and then hold a meeting to create accommodations and modifications for the student. And then I kind of had a hard time finding what to do from a teacher's perspective, because this is not something that happens a lot of times with younger children. So, but you'll want to take a positive approach with the student. So, of course, the teacher wants to be positive, but you actually want to be positive, like while interacting with the student. You want to show them that you are positive about the work they're doing, and you're positive that they can do it, and everything is positive. So that's how you want to be. And then I just wanted to include some resources for those who have schizophrenia. Maybe you all know someone, or if you ever need this in your career, you can come back to this. These are some great resources. A lot of these, I think all of these are national resources, so they're not specific to Virginia. And these are my works I did. And that's it.